You ever have one of those mornings where everything seems just about perfect, until it doesn't? That was me last spring. Saturday morning, sun filtering through the blinds, birds going full symphony mode, the smell of fresh-cut grass hanging in the air. I had my coffee in hand, my slippers on, and a plan to do absolutely nothing. Retirement life was finally delivering on its promise. Until I looked out the window and saw a group of total strangers setting up lawn chairs in the middle of my backyard. Not on the edge, not nearby, dead center on the patch of lawn where my grandson, Eli, practices his touchdown dances. I stared for a good 10 seconds, thinking maybe I'd finally gone senile. But no, they were real, and they were hammering little orange flags into the grass like they were claiming the moon for their country. I walked out there, still in my robe, heart pounding, and tried to keep my voice calm. "Can I help you folks with something?" The man, big guy, beer gut under a Lynyrd Skynyrd t-shirt, barely glanced up and said, "Nah, we're good. Just marking out our lot." "You're what?" That's when she appeared, like a storm cloud wearing a hot pink tracksuit. Eleanor Vaughn, my next-door neighbor, or as the younger folks would call her, a full-blown Karen with HOA power and a PhD in petty. Her smirk walked out 10 seconds before she did. "Morning, Harold," she chirped like we were old friends. "Meet my nephew, Daryl, and his lovely family. They just closed on this plot last week. Isn't it exciting?" I blinked. "Excuse me? Eleanor, this is my land. This entire yard is part of 304 Hickory Bend. I have the survey documents in my filing cabinet." She laughed, not a giggle, but that dry, dismissive cackle that made my blood pressure tick upward. "Oh, Harold, you must be confused. You signed that side lot over to me last winter, remember? I just sold it to Daryl." "Folks, I have never signed anything for Eleanor except a neighborhood petition to repaint the mailbox poles." I told her that. She pulled out a folded paper and waved it like a winning lottery ticket. I took it, and instantly, the engineer in me went into high alert. The document was fake. Font mismatch, spelling errors, and then the kicker, notarized by someone named Clarence Finley. My father's name. He's been dead for 18 years. Never was a notary. I looked Eleanor dead in the eye and said, "This is a forgery. And using my deceased father's name as a notary? That's not just fraud. That's a special kind of evil." She flinched just a hair. But Daryl didn't. He looked confused. His wife looked horrified. She admitted, in a quiet voice, that they had given Eleanor 6 months of rent in cash. No paperwork. No background check. Just a promise. I told them calmly, "You are trespassing. You have 10 minutes to pack up your flags and get off my land, or I'm calling the police." Eleanor puffed up like a Macy's parade balloon. "You wouldn't dare. I'm on the HOA welcome committee. And I own this property," I said, pointing to the official marker in the grass. "You have no right." 10 minutes later, Daryl and his crew were gone, but Eleanor stayed. She hissed as they left, promising I'd receive a formal notice of removal soon. I didn't even respond. I went inside, brewed another cup of coffee black, strong, and called the best real estate lawyer I could afford. Now, I'd love to say that was the end of it, but Eleanor didn't run on logic. She ran on delusion and entitlement, and apparently she was just getting warmed up. The following week, I started receiving letters from the HOA. Thick envelopes. Official looking. One accused me of erecting an unapproved fence. Another said I was illegally occupying a historical walkway. I laughed out loud. Sycamore Ridge was a pine forest before they broke ground. There were no historic walkways. Just chipmunks. I responded with photos. With permits. With receipts. But the letters kept coming. Then there was the garden hose incident. I came home one day to find my hose coiled neatly when I left, dragged across the lawn, and hooked to a sprinkler watering a patch of Eleanor's crispy grass. I disconnected it, locked the spigot, and bought a cap that clicked shut with a key. Petty? Sure. But necessary? Absolutely. After that, Eleanor started escalating. She began coaching Daryl's kids to say they always played in my yard. I caught it on camera, her crouched in her driveway, whispering to a 6-year-old, "Remember, sweetie, we've always played here, okay? Since before you were born." Yeah, witness tampering. With kids. I gave that video to my lawyer. We filed a formal action to quiet the tight legalese for, hey, delete this fraud from the county records. And I brought in a private investigator. Frank Mallory, retired cop, looked like a bloodhound in a trench coat. He dug deep, Turns out Eleanor had lived in 4 communities over 15 years, and each time, there was drama. Fake complaints, petty lawsuits, forged documents. In one case, she sold fake usage rights to a vacant lot next to hers and skipped town before the owners found out. This wasn't just a Karen with a clipboard. This was a con artist with a hobby. Then one night, there were sirens. I was on the phone with my sister when I saw red and blue lights strobing across my front porch. 3 cruisers. Officers at the door, one with a hand on his holster. I opened the door and tried to keep my voice level. Officers, something wrong. Sir, we received a call that you were threatening your neighbors with a firearm and may have narcotics on the premises. I stared at them. I'm a retired engineer. The only thing I threaten is an overgrown lawn. They asked to search the house. I refused without a warrant. Politely, but firmly. Then I told them about Eleanor. About the forged deed. About the lies. One officer, Sergeant Maddox, seemed to understand. Said he'd dealt with a few Eleanor types before. They left after 10 minutes, but my hands were still shaking an hour later. It wasn't funny anymore. It was dangerous. The next day, my lawyer sent a cease and desist. The private investigator uncovered even more: illegal garage rentals, unpaid taxes, stolen notary stamps. We filed everything with the county. Within a week, the quitclaim deed was voided. A county marshal delivered a cease and desist order directly to Eleanor's door. I happened to be pruning my roses when it happened. She answered in a zebra-striped robe, screamed something about deep state land grabs, and slammed the door so hard her pug barked for 5 minutes. But it wasn't over. We pressed criminal charges: forgery, filing false documents, harassment, HOA fraud. And I wasn't done yet. I sued her in civil court for emotional distress, legal fees, and damage to my name. We brought the footage: the fake deed, the coached kids, the illegally rented garage unit, the forged notary. She tried to spin it as a misunderstanding. The judge didn't buy it. Not for a second. Meanwhile, the HOA held an emergency meeting. I presented everything. They were stunned. Turns out Eleanor had doctored emails she sent on my behalf. Deleted parts. Rewrote others. Made me sound like I wanted to put up a statue of myself on the front lawn. She was removed from every committee. Fined. Publicly reprimanded. Her illegal tenants? Evicted. Her garage? Boarded up. Peace finally returned. The best part? I hosted a garage sale. Just a little one. A few old tools. Some cookbooks. And a sign out front that read, "Karen's Delusions. Everything must go." People came from 5 streets over. Someone even brought popcorn. I made $53. Donated it all to the animal shelter. I sit out on my porch now with my grandson again. Coffee in hand. Sprinklers running. Fence up. Cameras still rolling, just in case. Eleanor's house is quiet. Shutters drawn. Word is, she's trying to sell, but no one's biting. That tends to happen when you get charged with forgery. Let me leave you with this: know your rights. Keep your documents. Trust your gut. And if a neighbor shows up claiming they already sold your land to their family, call your lawyer before you call the cops. But call both. What about you? Ever deal with a neighbor like that? One who thinks the rules don't apply to them? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear your wildest neighborhood drama stories. Because if we can survive Eleanor Vaughn, we can survive anything.